Hi, and welcome to Ask Jade Anything, where you can ask me anything. I am Jade Sterling, your women's health coach, nurse, counsellor, yoga therapist. I bundle all of my skills, my experience into helping you balance your hormones, master your emotions, and create a life you love. And today's question came in through Instagram. And I think this is an important question that we all experience as women, myself included. And these are the things that we need to be talking about. So let me read you this question from Kate. Says, right before my cycle, when I start to bleed, I have increased anxiety and I'm easily triggered emotionally. This is getting worse as I get older. Is it just perimenopause? What can I do about it? Can you help me with this? Okay, so this is a great question. And so right off the bat, the first thing that comes to my mind is when you say that you're experiencing anxiety, I am assuming that you have identified that this is right before you start to bleed in your menstrual cycle because you've been documenting it, you've been observing it in some way, and you're able to have a certain amount of evidence for that. That's really the first place to start, to making sure that you feel that you can find a connection there. That is quite subjective, but it's something that we're going to be talking about. But I just want to gauge that you're aware of your cycle, obviously, and what's happening at this time. So that's a great place to start. Nextly, when you say I have increased in anxiety. So anxiety as in an emotion that you're experiencing and then you're able to move through and process and carry on in your daily life, or anxiety as a disorder where you can't function and you're unable to make your lunch, brush your teeth, care for your kids. It's really important to make that distinction too, because that's where I come in terms of the difference between coaching and even some of the work I do in counselling, but also traditional therapy that's required. Traditional therapy and medical intervention is definitely necessary when I use the analogy when your house is on fire, when you are in crisis and your house is on fire, and you need to call in the health professionals to get the blaze under control and establish you in a place of safety. Those are in the times where you can't brush your teeth, you can't make your lunch, you can't look after your kids. But coaching comes in after the crisis where you've been established in a place of safety, and we can just look at your ashes that's left over from the blaze and we can make magic from your ashes. So just making sure anxiety as an emotion is a completely normal bodily function of being a human being, and you can experience anxiety in a safe way that actually is a tool to help you learn things and grow and move forward and evolve into a better version of yourself. So again, we just have to be able to understand which one is going on here. So if your house is on fire and you're not able to cope in your daily life, please go and establish yourself in a place of safety first, and go see a healthcare professional that may be able to help you get that balance to start with. If not, then anxiety as a day-to-day emotion that you're just dealing with and still being able to function in your daily life, well, then you're definitely in the right place. And it is quite common for women to experience this right before the first few days of their menstrual cycle when they start to bleed. I'm not going to go into the anatomy and physiology of that today, but there's definitely a correlation with shift of hormones and a certain feeling within the body and how it triggers our nervous system depending on where our baseline is at the time. So what I'm trying to get at, I suppose, if it's just happening to around this time, I don't like to use the word normal because I don't think the word normal should be allowed to be in the vocabulary in some instances anyway. I like to use the word common. Things are common, and what you're describing is a common thing that happens at this time. And it doesn't seem to me like it's something that, unless you're in a place of crisis, that you need to think that there's something wrong with you. And really, that's the first thing that I want to ask you. If you're here in front of me or I was able to actually communicate with you one-on-one, that's the first thing that comes to my mind. You're saying that it gets worse as you get older, and you're wondering if there's anything that you can do about this, and is it just perimenopause? It could be a number of things, but the first thing I want to ask you is, you're saying that these things are happening, and when you say that you have you're triggered emotionally, I'm assuming you're triggered emotionally in a negative way, because if you're triggered emotionally in a positive way, it's not often something that comes to the forefront of our mind that that's a problem. It could be you could find that you're deliriously happy and then all of a sudden you have a big crash and you're just miserable and sad and want to cry. And that's perfectly fine too, because that happens in this context. But it sounds like you think that increased anxiety and easily triggered emotionally, it shouldn't be that way, that there's something wrong. And that's the first thing that I find with people. And they say, yeah, no, I don't want it to be that way. It shouldn't be that way. Something's gone wrong here. Now, when you have the thought that something's wrong and something shouldn't be this way, how does that make you feel? It makes me feel powerless. It makes me feel helpless, hopeless, and sometimes worthless, because I am powerless to that thought that something's wrong. It shouldn't be this way. I shouldn't feel anxiety. I shouldn't feel it increase. I shouldn't be triggered emotionally in a way that doesn't feel good. But I think that is the first thing to become aware of. You feel like something's gone wrong. What if that's just the way the body works? And some people go, oh, I don't want it to be like that. And that's because it doesn't feel good, right? Now, again, we're talking about if you're established in a place of safety. We're not talking about if you're in a crisis situation. But let's think about a human bodily function like a vomit. It doesn't feel good. I don't like it. That's actually like, it's kind of like, give me anything else. Give me pain, give me blood. You know, I've been a nurse for 15 years. You can give me any kind of bodily fluid, really, except vomit. It's just the one that really look, you know, goosebumps right here now. I don't like it. And I particularly don't like it for myself on the inside of my body. And nausea, oh my God, take that away. Give me, you know, take off my arm any day. I say that now, of course, but in the dramatic way that I like to describe things, but give me blood over vomit any day. But vomiting actually has a very specific function for our body, and it is to aid us to get something out that shouldn't be there. It is the body saying, something's in there and I need to get it out right now. Doesn't feel good, but most of the time you actually feel a lot better, don't you, when you've had a big vomit? And I know my kids have that experience. Now they go, oh, I just want to vomit because I know I'll feel better. Doesn't feel nice, but it actually makes us better. It makes us feel better. There might be a process happening for you emotionally where that doesn't feel good around that time. It doesn't feel good, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's not part of your bodily function to be able to process, to then move through, to then conquer, to then be able to find peace around that time. And it's particularly at that time, as I said, where there are hormone changes, it's more challenging. But this is where we actually have to practice it at all aspects of our cycle. A lot of people find that tell me that they're meditating and they're praying or they're reading or they're walking or they increase their self-care activities around that time. And it's quite a popular practice. I'm not saying it's the wrong thing to do, that a week before their cycle, a lot of women say to me, then I really go into self-care mode. And that is fantastic. And I highly recommend that. If you're not doing that already as a minimum, then definitely recommend that you start that up. But why you're not doing it for yourself all the time, I'm asking. So it only gets to crisis point before you actually start to dial down, or just before the crisis point comes that you start to dial down. So we need to be looking after ourselves, connecting with ourselves and prioritizing our self-care at every moment of our cycle, not just the day before, the week before, but the month before. Meaning the month before, the month before that, the month before that, meaning that actually comes into your everyday life. So it's about finding a practice for you that you can manage every single day to support your nervous system to have a really healthy baseline so that when these peaks come at the beginning of your cycle, when you start to bleed, it's not so overwhelming and you can manage it. Because that's the other thing that I wanted to mention, is that what I like to do with women is evaluate, what if this doesn't go away? How are you going to manage and still cope and not go into crisis and show up in your daily life? How are you going to manage in this way? So if things don't just disappear and miraculously get better, if I can't take the anxiety away for you, I can't take the emotional triggers away from you, how are we going to manage? We're going to manage with a daily practice. We're going to manage by finding. And what I like to do for women is actually find out how much time do you really have. We look at the who, what, where, why, when of your day. And, you know, who are you today? Are you mum? Are you work? Are you wife? Are you? And most of the time we are all of those things within the space of an hour, right? But it's finding out what elements of you are showing up in the day, which ones are possibly being triggered the most. That's the what. Why, and why is this so? Who, what, where, why, when, and what part of the day, when are we actually going to focus on our self-care? Who, what, where, why, when, and how? And how are we going to do that? But when we're looking at that, we're also taking a realistic amount of time for implementing something for you that's going to be your thing. Now, what's your thing? For me, it's meditating. I have to meditate at least half an hour in the morning and in the evening to be able to maintain a certain level of balance, mental health clarity, and my emotional base for my nervous system. That's my bare minimum. Another thing I like to do is walk. Another thing I like to do is journal. So these are things that I can put into my day. I need to stretch my body doing yoga. If I'm not practicing yoga therapy on myself every day, how can you practice what you preach? And so I've found that for me, the bare minimum is like 40 minutes. It's a 40-minute practice. And that is my absolute bare minimum that I give myself during the day. And if I've got an hour, awesome, I take an hour. But each morning I do 40 minutes. Then I look at the time, I'm like, okay, how much have I? Okay, I've got an extra 10 minutes today. What else would I like to do? Okay, I don't have an extra 10 minutes today. I need to leave it at that. I find some women say to me, to be completely honest, because of their work commute or getting the kids to school or whatever's happening at home or other family commitments, they're saying to me, I've literally got 5 minutes a day. Great. What can we do for 5 minutes? What 5-minute practice do you need to be able to give you a firm foundation, a safe baseline for your nervous system every single day? And it might be 5 minutes twice a day, if you can find that. We've got to look for the windows. We've got to find where we can implement that for you in your life. Tanya Eliza is a very successful entrepreneur, and she runs businesses online, and she does a whole bunch of things that she's a very busy lady, and she runs a lot of how you can manage yourself in a small period of time. And so I've done a little bit of her work. She takes 4 minutes a day for herself, but she's figured out what she needs to do in those 4 minutes to be able to bring herself down to a state where she feels like that she's grounded, she's connected with herself, she loves herself, and she's charged for the day. It doesn't take a lot of time, but it does take commitment to do it every single day. And the research has shown if you can do 3 minutes every single day, it is remarkable the improvement and the progress you can make rather than doing 3 hours once a week. Because think about it, if you're going to the gym, you're doing it once a week, you sort of have to start again by what weights you're lifting or whatever you're trying to build up in terms of your cardio duration. If you're doing a little bit every single day, you build up muscle, you build up fitness, you build up stamina. So that's what we're doing with our mind and our soul, building up mental and emotional and spiritual muscles by having a practice we do every single day. So now you're saying, is this because of perimenopause? It could be. You're saying it's getting worse as you get older. This could all be true. We actually really can't prove it except for your own personal experience, and that's really subjective. But if you can reach out to me if you want to actually engage in one-on-one to find out what works for you specifically, we can do that. All the details are in the description below of how you can connect with me. But what I ask you to do is to implement a daily practice. That even in 4 minutes, if you've got 4 minutes to put aside, if you've got 40 minutes, amazing. Find what works for you. Connect with yourself every single day. And whatever that you need to be able to establish a safe, comfortable home, an emotional home, emotional baseline for you, so that these peaks, when they happen, because they're gonna keep happening, you're able to manage and you're able to master and then we can work towards the conquer. I hope that sounds good. I hope that's been helpful. And so please do leave me any questions in the comments below here or in any of my social media platforms. As I said, you can connect with me via the links in the description below. And just remember to own your path and create your peace. And have a beautiful day. I'll see you in the next video.